Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow is the 800-pound gorilla of a genre that, at the time of its publication, had scarcely entered into the literary scene. Published in 1973, it would become one of the first novels of many to be labeled a postmodernist work of fiction, and would also be a pioneer of another subgenre coined by literary critic Linda Hutcheon, known as historiographic metafiction. Gravity's Rainbow tells the story of Tyrone Slothrop, an American soldier originally stationed in London who was apparently attracting guided missiles with his erections. Yes, I'm not joking. That is a proverbial overarching plot to one of the most famous novels of the century. But it is only one of many stories centered around the maniacal paranoia and chaos of World War II. There are dozens of conspiracies, rumors, and lies pursued ad nauseam by hundreds of characters over hundreds of pages. Pynchon never really makes it clear whether most of them are true or not, but it is that uncertainty that is probably the most important aspect of the book. None of these plots, however avidly pursued with the most rigorous methods of reading, ever really get fulfilled. But that's the fun in it. This uncertainty invites a sense of readerly longing that has made Gravity's Rainbow akin to those impossible equations professors draw on chalkboards outside of departmental offices. There are prominent characters who disappear into the void of the prose, characters who may or may not exist, and a rocket, not a person, seems to be the character that outlasts all the others. There are deep investigations into the thoughts of Jung and Pavlov, interspersed with lewd descriptions of defecation and sex. It sounds like an absolute mess, and it is in a sense, but beneath this chaos is the looming presence of an author who, as readers, we may fear has complete awareness and control over what is going on. This novel is pretty unique in, well, everything it does, but you must understand what I mean when I say it's a postmodernist novel. During and after World War I, literature was in the process of undergoing various innovations. You had stream of consciousness, Ezra Pound and William Carlos Williams experimenting with imagism, Gertrude Stein, James Joyce, and Virginia Woolf challenging the reader's idea of perspective. While modernism itself was not a fixed institution, there was a seemingly collective will to bring literature to a higher plane of prominence, to view some literature as higher and more complex than others. T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, for example, made reference to dozens of obscure and complicated texts before it. Literature became, well, difficult and complex. Pynchon, on the other hand, is challenging that. Modernism wished to establish a meta-narrative, this ideal body of truth and form that literature strove to attain. Postmodernism looks to break that down by being completely inclusive. Fiction isn't about selectively plucking kernels of higher thought, as much as it is about including everything. Gravity's Rainbow contains references to academia and memorabilia, to science and sex, to rocket science, and, well, songs about phalluses. We have to remember that Pynchon is not necessarily trying to recount the era as much as recapture it. World War II left Europe in absolute chaos, and this prose captures the confusion and the paranoia nearly everybody felt. This was a time when people disappeared without notice, when anybody could have been a spy. This is technically a piece of historical fiction, but it does not seek a fixed truth about what happened. I previously mentioned the term historiographic metafiction. This is a fairly new subgenre that looks to challenge how we perceive history, and how written historical record is only skimming the surface in its treatment of the past. This novel looks everywhere to define the past, and never really does so perfectly, except in that it is irresolute and confusing. In the late 20th century, many authors wrote about local histories, but quite differently. Fiction has a new purpose. It's not about what happened, but rather how people thought and felt. In the case of Gravity's Rainbow, Europe sought ultimate scientific and intellectual maxims while, to reference a famous scene in the book, having their faces deep in a bowl of crap. Gravity's Rainbow is also famous for its legacy. While it has endured in the canon of unreadable books, its humor and calculated prose has influenced science fiction, historical fiction, and even cyberpunk. It has also prolonged the string of novels that parody the obsessions and follies of society as a whole. Don Quixote's Society of Romance, Melville's Chaotic World of Whaling are examples of such texts. It also foresaw what American literature would become. Contemporary American lit would eventually need to deal with the tension of rabid materialism, of the distracting impulse of innumerable cultural artifacts flooding into our consciousness. While I know such a brief account of Gravity's Rainbow does not do it justice, and there is much more to discuss, but I hope this has piqued your curiosity and prepared you to tackle the extraordinary labyrinth that is this Leviathan of a novel.